Welcome to our discussion today. We're diving into the fascinating history and current status of feminism and the women's rights movement. Let's get started.
Absolutely can't wait to get into this topic. So, where should we begin?
Well, I think it's important to start with the three waves of feminism.
Mm-hmm.
The first wave, back in the 1800s to the 1920s, was all about legal rights, especially voting rights for women.
Right, like the suffragettes and all that.
Exactly. Figures like Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Sojourner Truth were pivotal. They organized events like the Seneca Falls Convention in
Yeah.
1848, which was the first women's rights convention in the U.S.
And that eventually led to the 19th Amendment in 1920, granting women the right to vote, right?
Yes, that's correct. It was a monumental achievement. But it's important to note that not all women
Right.
benefited equally. Many women of color were still denied voting rights due to racial discrimination.
That's a crucial point. So, even with that progress, there were still significant limitations.
Absolutely. Then came the second wave in the 1960s to 1980s, focusing on workplace rights, reproductive rights, and challenging traditional gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Think of figures like Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem, and Shirley Chisholm.
Ah, yes, the era of the feminine mystique and the push for equal pay.
Exactly. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 banned wage discrimination based on gender. And Title IX in 1972 required equal funding for women in education and
Yeah.
sports. Not to mention Roe v. Wade in 1973, which established a constitutional right to abortion.
That was a significant setback. So, the second wave had its own set of achievements and challenges.
Right. Women entered the workforce in record numbers, and birth control became widely available, giving women more reproductive freedom. But some critics felt the movement focused too much on white, middle-class women.
Yeah.
It didn't fully address the needs of women of color or those from different socioeconomic backgrounds.
That's been a recurring critique, hasn't it? So, how did the third wave address these issues?
Well, the third wave, from the 1990s to present, emphasized diversity and intersectionality. It focused on issues like race, LGBTQ+ rights, workplace harassment, and media representation.
Intersectionality, connecting different aspects of identity like race, gender, class.
Exactly. And concepts like gender fluidity became more prominent. The Me Too movement in 2017, for example, exposed widespread sexual harassment and workplace misconduct.
Right.
Laws like the Violence Against Women Act in 1994 strengthened protections against domestic violence.
So, the third wave really broadened the scope of feminism.
Definitely, there's greater awareness now of harassment and gender-based violence. More discussions on gender identity and non-binary representation. But some argue that modern feminism is too focused on ideology over practical issues. And others feel the movement doesn't include men's issues enough.
That's interesting. Do you think there's merit to those criticisms?
Well, I think it's important for feminism to be inclusive. It's not just about women's issues, but about gender equality as a
Yeah.
whole. Addressing men's issues like mental health and paternity leave can benefit society overall.
But some might say that diluting the focus could weaken the movement.
That's a fair point. It's a delicate balance between addressing specific challenges women face and promoting equality for all genders. Maybe the movement needs to evolve to encompass a broader spectrum of issues.
Speaking of evolution, let's talk about feminism on a global scale.
Great idea. Countries like Sweden, Norway, and Finland are leading with strong gender equality laws, parental leave, and equal pay. Rwanda has the highest percentage of women in parliament. And did you know New Zealand was the first country to grant women the right to vote in 1893?
That's impressive, but many parts of the world still face significant challenges.
Absolutely. The gender pay gap persists. Women earn less than
Yeah.
men on average. There's widespread violence against women, with many countries lacking legal protections against domestic abuse. Limited reproductive rights remain an issue, and millions of girls lack access to education.
It's clear that global feminism matters. Women's economic empowerment benefits entire economies.
Exactly. Educated women contribute more to political and social development. It's
Right.
not just a women's issue, it's a human issue.
But there are still controversies and misconceptions about feminism.
Unfortunately, yes. One common myth is that feminism means hating men, but feminism is about equality, not superiority.
Agreed. Many feminists support men's rights, like advocating for paternity leave and mental health awareness.
Absolutely. Another misconception is that women are already equal, so feminism is unnecessary. But inequality still exists in wages, leadership positions, and legal protections.
Yeah,
For instance, women make up only 8% of Fortune 500 CEOs.
that's a staggering statistic, so feminism still has work to do.
Definitely. And some say feminism only focuses on women, but modern feminism acknowledges men's issues too. Men face
Right.
higher suicide rates and often lack mental health support.
Plus, paternity leave is limited, which affects family dynamics.
Exactly. Challenging gender stereotypes benefits everyone. Maybe the movement could rebrand to emphasize equality for all genders. What do you think about that?
It's an interesting idea. Perhaps a more inclusive approach could address criticisms and broaden support.
So, looking to the future, what are the next steps for feminism? Closing the gender pay gap, expanding legal protections, increasing female leadership in politics and business, and fighting gender based violence worldwide are all crucial.
Absolutely. Will feminism evolve or decline, though?
Well, some believe it will shift toward human rights for all genders. Others
Yeah.
fear extreme ideological divides could weaken the movement.
It's hard to say. What does equality look like in a truly fair society?
That's the $1 million question. It's like we're all aiming for this ideal, but the path to get there is
Right.
complex.
Definitely. But regardless, feminism has reshaped politics, society, and the economy.
Absolutely. The movement continues to evolve, addressing new challenges. Whether you support feminism or not, its impact is undeniable. Will the next generation push feminism forward, or will gender equality debates take a new direction?
Only time will tell.
Well, that wraps up our discussion. Thanks for diving into this topic with me.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.